We talked about ways that we look at corporate earnings to forecast a recession. And there's many more charts we can look at to learn how to forecast, a recession on the horizon or when that's happening right now, which doesn't always show up in the data. But let's talk about stock market crashes, right? If you feel like the stock market's going to crash, then it really comes down to what is it you're looking at? Well, what we're looking at here is the blue line is the S&P 500. The red line is the unemployment data. So you can see is that the blue line right over there started moving down before the unemployment data was ever bad. And then it started moving back up a little bit because I'm sure there was little shakiness in the markets about what was going on. But hey, there was a little hopium as well saying everything's going to be okay. And so with a little bit of hopium, kind of like we got on Friday and Thursday night when China said, "Oh, Trump called, and we're willing to look at these tariffs. We're willing to have a discussion, as long as they're very kind and thoughtful to us and respectful, right? As long as they're respectful to us, we'll be happy to have the conversation and look at these fentanyl tariff numbers, etc." They didn't give a lot of like really positive guidance toward that, but that little bit was enough hopium to drive the market up a lot, both in the night session and the next day session. And this is kind of what we had back here right before COVID in 2020. In 2019, everybody saw a recession coming. Everybody expected a recession in 2020. It was already forecasted. In 2019, the reverse repo market ran out of money and the Federal Reserve took it over. They had to take over the reverse repo market to make sure there was enough liquidity to keep banks functioning, which is pretty scary if you think about that. And they have a lot of ways of doing backdoor bailouts now. So there was fear in the market. COVID was already going through China. We didn't know what was going on. There was worries about a recession. The numbers weren't looking good at the end of the first Trump presidency. The reverse repo market ran out of money. That was a banking crisis. That was a big scare. Government stepped in, took it over, and then we had a hopium run. And then the second those jobs numbers started going bad, and this was before March, the second those jobs numbers started going bad, the stock market had a panic. Then when COVID got really bad, it had a huge panic. So this is kind of the way, this is a very kind of exaggerated version, but it is one of the best ways of like showing what it looks like when unemployment goes through the roof and the stock market goes the other way, right? Because they correlate. And whenever you see people talking about recession, you're going to see them bring out the unemployment versus the S&P 500, because if they're moving in contrary ways, one's going up, one's going down, then it's telling you there's going to be more of that. And what I'm thinking is going to happen, especially with all the news and with all these earnings guidance of laying people off, um, I think next quarter we're really going to start hearing a lot more about layoffs. I think on the next unemployment jobs report, we're going to start seeing that unemployment and that loss of jobs really start building up. And if you could see there in the red line, there's a little tick this way before it goes vertical. That little tick. If we see that little tick on the next report, that'll freak the market out. If we see two ticks in a row, that'll really freak the market out. China news or no China news. Because right now we're living in a world of duality. We're living in the Trump reality of tariffs and they're on, they're off, they're on, they're off, China, China, China. And then we're living in, well, if we put that aside, there's a lot of bad data over here. We have inflationary data, the CPE, the core price, right, of inflation was a bad number, basically saying that you're not going to be able to lower interest rates. The Federal Reserve cannot lower interest rates if inflation numbers are high, and they were high, higher than expected. But still, even with that information, even with some of the other bad information that came out, the stock market went up just because China there was a rumor that they were actually talking because nobody believed it. But once the data gets bad enough in the actual economy, we're going to start seeing trouble and problems. So just wanted to share this with you because this correlates to what I said in the last video.